Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and this is my next to last film video in my series on my top 10 directors, and we're up to this masterclass director and one of the biggest names in directing, and honestly his name sells films, and there's not a whole lot like that in Hollywood right now, and that is Christopher Nolan, who does indeed have a franchise with the Dark Knight trilogy, but in general his films are events, and when he has a new film come out, it's an event. And he even made a very bare bones film like Dunkirk into an event film that made a lot of money, and that's Nolan. And his name sells, and I'm going to talk to you about why. And Christopher Nolan has made a career about balancing nonlinear storytelling, threading through all these different complex stories and these big grandiose ideas into these films, and he handles them with such class. And I love his take on genre. He is a genre filmmaker for the most part. There are not a whole lot of films that are straight up just dramas that he directs, and actually Insomnia is debatable. It's a thriller, but that's his most straightforward film. That, and like Memento is a straightforward human film. It's not really science fiction, it's not a war film, it's not this, it's not that, but like nothing feels normal when Nolan makes it, and that's the thing. And Christopher Nolan does such a fantastic job of using practicality in his filmmaking to the point where everything feels so real and intense, and I love that. And I'm so glad that he does it and use a whole lot of CGI, and when he does, it's surprisingly fantastic, because you wouldn't expect, like, oh, I'm going to get some great CGI out of a Christopher Nolan film. But I remember recently rewatching The Dark Knight Rises, and the Batman's flying vehicle, that CGI is amazing, and then Inception's insane, and it's incredible the amount of work and all the craft that goes into his films. And I know people's biggest criticism of him is the lack of actual emotional connections in his films, and I disagree. There are some seriously emotional moments in some of his films that are really heartbreaking, and goes to some places, and I feel like it gets lost in the shuffle of how crafting his approach to filmmaking is, and it kind of falls through the cracks that people don't realize. And going all the way back to his first film, Following, which is barely feature length and is an interesting little, like, student kind of made film, and it lays the groundwork moving forward for what you can expect from a Christopher Nolan film. I don't know if it quite feels 100% like Nolan yet, but once Memento is such an interesting and complex film, and this whole idea of taking chances with starting from both ends of a film and trying to meet in the middle and crafting a story that works that way, where you have this big payoff at the beginning of the film, which is the end of the film, and then you have this big payoff at the end of the actual film, which is actually the middle of the story, and it's just like, what? And how that all works, and getting some interesting, intense performances, and how it all threads together, and how he crafts it together, balancing back and forth between black and white and color to reinforce what parts of the story he's in, and how he does that is so incredible. And then he follows up with Insomnia, which, that and Following, I feel like are lower tier films for him, and honestly every other film of his, I'm going there, I think are fantastic on some level up there. And Insomnia just misses that because it is a little more straightforward and not as intriguing and complex. But what the film does have, it's well crafted, as any film of his is. It's gorgeous. The cinematography in Christopher Nolan films are fantastic. Wally Pfister, and then now it'll come back to me. Now I feel awful. Um, because his new cinematographer is just as talented and fantastic. But Wally Pfister does a great job in this shot in the fog. Oh, the sequence is amazing. But some of the some very interesting performances. You get very interesting performance out of Al Pacino where he's not going full wah and I'm gonna yell my lines, which he does in like everything now. There's very subtle moments where he gets a little there, but it's understandable. It fits in the story and it isn't just him yelling all the time. And Robin Williams is so intense, unnerving, and very reserved in his performance in this film, and it's really intriguing. And then we jump into now he has his hands on Batman. And I'll talk about these three films real quick together, but the casting in his films are incredible. He really knows who to pick to play certain roles. And Christian Bale turned out to be a fantastic Batman, no matter how much people want to joke about his Batman voice. But like he's so fantastic and he does a really good job of balancing both Bruce Wayne and Batman. And then the fantastic supporting cast of Michael Caine, Gary Oldman, Morgan Freeman, and all of the villains and their casting. Liam Neeson is fantastic in Batman Begins. Heath Ledger's Joker. And what really sucks is Aaron Eckhart gets overshadowed for Two-Face, but like Harvey Dent is amazing, and Aaron Eckhart is amazing in that film. And then I love Bane, and Tom Hardy's amazing, and nobody can argue with me that there are some choices in terms of the story and where that goes with his character that pisses me off, but in terms of that character and his whole physicality, his voice, everything really fits oddly. He's a very strange character to portray, and they really do justice. And that throughout his, like, you don't really expect action to really be Christopher Nolan's thing, and he can over edit in terms of some of his action sequences in some of his films. But what I really loved, especially in The Dark Knight Rises, that fight between Bane and Batman is fantastic. And you actually see Batman being a bit of a detective, you know. He is the world's greatest detective, but whatever. And those are some of the best superhero films ever made. Comic book films, some of the best. And Christopher Nolan helped make people take those films seriously, thanks to The Dark Knight. And The Dark Knight The Dark Knight Rises is my personal favorite, but The Dark Knight is such an amazingly well-crafted film. And because they feel like crime films and crime mysteries and thrillers, but that's Batman. They just happen to have a crazy clown man and a ninja guy and a freakishly muscular terrorist who has a mask on his face. And like they work so well, and he made them realistic and gritty, which is crazy. Because we were so used to Tim Burton and then the jumping of the shark of Joel Schumacher, and then he brought Batman back for the brink when he was just a joke at that point. And then one of my probably my personal favorite, The Prestige. That movie messed with my mind. It messed with my mind. And the fact that I got to watch Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman together acting off each other, and other great performances by Michael Caine and Scarlett Johansson, Rebecca Hall, David Bowie, and Andy Serkis. And Hugh Jackman is fantastic in this film, a crazy descent of a character and such an interesting story and everything. And the lengths this film goes and where it takes you, the genre bending, everything works. And all of his films are so gorgeous, and some of the shots are so thought-provoking and just emotional and impactful just to look at. And there's some great ones. The collection of black hats and the Hall of Tanks, and that's all I'm going to say from the end of the film. And then you have Inception, which is the craziest big budgeted summer blockbuster. How the hell did they greenlight this movie with all the oh my god, the practical effects in this movie, the turning hallway in that hotel, the Bond-esque mountain sequence at the end of the film, and everything, and all the performances. This cast is amazing. From Leonardo DiCaprio to Tom Hardy, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Ellen Page, Cillian Murphy. Tom Berenger pops up in this movie. Michael Caine, and just everything and everyone, and how this film works and how it pays off. And I haven't even been talking about the scores in this film, and now Hans Zimmer's scores in the Batman trilogy, and then of course Inception with the we all know it. And everything just works so incredibly and intense, and threading through all of these different storylines going on. And then I love Interstellar. I think it's a flawed masterpiece. I know other people are thinking, what the hell's this movie? It's nuts. That movie hit so hard emotionally. Matthew McConaughey carries that film so well. And the special effects, the interesting things, and all the callbacks to how Kubrickian this film is in 2001: A Space Odyssey. The crazy the Tesseract sequence at the end is debatable if that really should have been in the film or not, but how unbelievably brought together and realized that was in the film was so interesting and intriguing. I loved it and I ate it up. I'm a sci-fi crazy person, and I loved Interstellar. And then Dunkirk, which Christopher Nolan's like, who needs deep, crazy, interesting characters? Let's put these real people in a situation. Just go for it. And that movie was so intense. And the crazy Nolan twist of it is that it's a Nolan film. And that's the interesting thing, is the nonlinear storytelling. And when that all started playing off, and I'm like, what? Mind blown when this all started piecing together at the end, building tension, building up to a particular point, and how gorgeous it looked, the dogfighting scenes and everything. Hans Zimmer's score from both Interstellar with oh my god, the organ playing in that score is incredible. And then the with the ticking of the clock is like, and like just everything, the ticking clock, the intensity, the shots, the sound design of everything in Dunkirk. I heard people had to walk out of that because it was that intense in IMAX. I can't imagine. I saw it on 70mm print, which was really cool. I'm the kind of person, anything that Christopher Nolan does, I'm there. I'm ready. I want to be there. And if I could be there opening night, I'll be there opening night, because what he does is incredible. And Christopher Nolan is an unbelievable talent. And every film that he has made is a good to great film. And that's hard to say. For all directors have their... Not Nolan. Not at this point. And he keeps going, and he keeps showing that he's so talented. And I'm anxiously finding out what his next film is. But please go check out all of Nolan's films. His filmography isn't that huge. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He has 10 films really at this point, and you should go check them out if you haven't seen them. And just look at the craft of how his films are made. It's incredible. It's awe-inspiring. And please check in next week when I wrap this series up with my #1 director. And thank you for supporting the Wasteland Reviewer.